Welcome to episode 229 of the Necronoma.com. Tickets are now on sale as the official StokerCon pre-party returns. Spirited Giving, a horror-themed fundraiser, will take place May 29th at the San Diego Central Library. We will have live readings by Clay McLeod Chapman, Jamie Flanagan, Bridget D. Brave, Vincent V. Cava, Danger Slater, and I. Zhang, as well as a live performance by YouTube horror narrator Mr. Creepypasta. And all of that is followed by meet and greets, book signings, photo ops, and more. All while raising money for the San Diego Library Foundation, particularly youth reading programs and the Books Unbanned initiative. If you're planning on attending StokerCon or you're in the area, you do not want to miss this event. It's going to be one hell of a night. Grab tickets now at www.spirited-giving.com and help horror leave a lasting impact on the community of San Diego. And I want to send a quick thank you to Fright Rags, one of our top sponsors for Spirited Giving 2024, May 29th, San Diego, California. Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003, offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now. And if I was to choose a drag name, I'd have to start paying attention to golf again, and I don't want to do that.
And I'm Don Guillory, author, historian, educator, co-host of the podcast that you're listening to. And when we first started, I didn't have a joke, but I have a comment. Now, I take no issue with, Chi-Chi and Noxema and Vita, seeing that Julie NEWMAR is the only Catwoman, and I disagree because Eartha Kitt is on the same level, if not higher.
I did expect this to come up. I really did. I'm so impressed that it happened right away.
But other than that, I will give you guys a nice little trigger warning. I might cry during this episode.
Good. It's about time somebody on this show cried other than me. All right. Joining us today, Anton Cancre is back. Anton, welcome back to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back here. It's always fun to hang out with you weirdos. I'm Anton. I write things. I'm not good at promoting myself. So yeah, I write stuff, and I'm an educator. I work in a juvenile correctional facility. So that's loads of fun there. I get periodically confused with being a drag queen, even though I am just a tired little white boy in a dress.
Does that happen a lot? Like legitimately, I'm asking, do people really come up to you constantly and ask if you're a drag queen or make comments or what happens?
I do very regularly get, either asked if I do drag or told that I should do drag. And I've seen the work those ladies put in. I don't know how to fuck with a wig. I don't know how to do fucking eyelashes and tucks and all the shit. And the stuff I've seen people do with just absolute trash outfits they picked up in a thrift store, like, I can't fucking do that shit. Those ladies are amazing. I'm a goddamn idiot that just likes to be slutty.
Even the shows themselves are so, like, there's so much improv, but then so much beautiful performance, and like there has to be so much fucking work that goes into these shows on top of getting dressed every day and doing all the makeup and all that good stuff. Like, I'm blown away by the amount of performance level and time spent on that art as well.
Yeah,
With that
there's,
said, go
near
ahead.
me, there's an open mic, or not open mic, I guess wouldn't be what it'd be called for that. Open stage drag performance thing that's done about once a week. That, like, just even with that, like, these are complete amateurs that just sign up that day, show up, go into the back room, throw on some stuff, and do their show. And those are astounding. Like, the fuck, man.
Awesome. Oh man, Don, what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, I was going to echo Anton's point, which is art, right? This is not just an artistic lifestyle, but this is a great representation of somebody's identity and their chosen identity.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about, I don't know, like, people try to figure out who they are. The reason, let me go ahead and give a trigger warning and preface as well. I'm probably going to go on a couple of rants on this episode because of current political issues. So if you don't want to listen to that, skip this episode. But if you skip this episode because of that, then you're not a real listener and fuck you. So it is allowing individuals to express themselves in the way in which they feel comfortable, the way in which they feel empowered. And the people who do not like this art form, this lifestyle, it's because they are jealous and insecure because they themselves cannot be their authentic selves. And that's the biggest thing that I see reverberated throughout this is the drag queens themselves, when we're talking about Vita, whether Noxima and Chi-Chi, each one of them, they have an understanding of who their identity is or what their identity is, but they understand what their identity is, how their identity gets absorbed or interpreted by others. Because the scariest part for me, among many scary parts in this film, which anybody who says this is not a horror film can, eat an egg. Hopefully it's rotten and spoiled. But when Vita makes that comment about, taking the road trip, she says, well, I'm sorry, not Vita. Noxima says that. She says, I've not seen this America place, but they don't take kindly to our kind. And that became the frame in which I watched the movie, the perspective I watched the movie with for the entirety of the rest of the film. Because we're looking at 30 years later, we've actually regressed in some cases. Because I've been to drag brunch. I've been to all these shows, and I'm like, it's theater. I don't know. It's small-minded assholes who are afraid of people reading to their kids in costumes as well. So anyway, I'll save my rant for later.
So it's okay. I'll be ranting plenty too. I will be screaming constantly because I live in Ohio and we just recently had some laws passed under the guise of protecting the children, when really just the plan is that people would much rather their kids be dead than trans. So, yeah, there's going to be plenty of bitching from me too.
Oh, wait. This would be a good pause. Let me just go ahead and throw this out so I do not forget. For those of you who have had issues with family or having issues with family and don't know about these resources, look up the Trevor Project, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the Crisis Text Line, the Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender National Hotline, the GLBT National Youth Talk Line, and Trans Lifeline. Look up those resources from PFLAG, PFLAG. And just because your family does not accept you or choose for you to remain in their family does not mean that you do not have value. It does not mean that you do not have a family outside of the people that the situation that you were born into. There are people out there for you. Your people, your family, your tribe, they're waiting for you.
Sorry, let you go ahead.
And if you guys ever need a father, I'm not going to lend any money, but I've got good advice from time, so feel free to reach out.
And not just kid. I mean, I have the greatest love for kids that are going through this, trying to figure out who they are. But I also know a lot of adults that
Yes.
are starting to realize. Just had a conversation with a friend of mine actually this morning that is hold on, my dog's being a jerk. Thank you. Anyways,
Right. That's a
is
bingo square, by the way.
struggling with their presentation and identity, and like the conversation started off with like, but I'm 30, like I can't be changing this stuff now, like that's expecting too much out of people. And no, first off, you're not changing shit. You're acknowledging who you are.
Yes.
And your understanding of who you are changes over the course of your life. Good for you for figuring out these things about yourself, figuring out who you need to be, and by all means, like, be who you need to be. Present yourself the way that you need to present yourself. And yeah, there are some people that will be shitty. Those people can fuck off. There are plenty of people out there that will care about you, that will continue to care about you, and will hold on to you, because the people that have known you, the people that do actually that have been a part of your life, have been a part of your life because of the person you are, not however you're presenting that person. So, be how you got to be. And any age, don't give a shit. If you're 10 years old and you realize that, what everybody's telling you a boy isn't what you are or who you are, God knows I've been through that. And you want to act in a different way, or you need to act in a different way, do so. If you are 55 years old and you've realized at that point these things that have not felt right in your life, that's part of where this wrongness has come from, feel free to embrace what you are, who you are, and like, it's all right. We all figure out shit late. I didn't figure out a lot of this shit till I was well in my fucking 40s. And I'm so glad I stopped giving a goddamn about what people thought around that point. And I'm having so much more fun. It's so much better on this side. So kids, adults, whatever, be you. It's much more fun. Especially when you get rid of the assholes that are trying to tell you not to be you.
Exactly. It's one of my pet peeves when I see these cutesy stories of like 89-year-old man comes out to his family and they're accepting and everybody's like, oh, that's so cute. And I'm like, fuck you. This poor dude who had to hide like 60 fucking years. Like, yeah, it's cute. It's great that they accepted him. I'm happy that he got that before he died or whatever, right? But like, look at all those years that he could have had being his authentic self, and hopefully his family would have accepted him. But if they didn't, like, finding people who do, like, I don't know, it ranks up there with like these stories of kids saving up money to help somebody, and I'm like, that's because our medical system's fucked, like, it feels the same way to me. Like, yes, I'm happy that there's good, but look what we could have done instead, and I want to add really fast to Don's talk about all the different places to contact and stuff. If anybody out there ever wants merchandise from the Necronama.com, we have a TeePublic site, and we have never taken a single dime from this. Anything that goes over the cost of the stuff and shipping and whatever we get paid automatically gets donated to the Trans Lifeline every single time. And we've done that since the beginning of the show. We don't make money at this show. That's very, very apparent if you live in my world. But no, it's just we really wanted to give back, and that's the charity I chose at the beginning of this. So if you ever go to our TeePublic and buy some merch, that's where your money will go.
Well, since we're mentioning things that benefit these organizations that Donna talked about, I will also mention that there's an anthology that I'm a part of, but Angelique Jordana was the one that put it together. We Are Here is the name of it. It's available through pretty much any of the places that you buy any of those. However, the proceeds from that all go to the Trevor Project. And so, get a copy of that, get a chance to read some gay ass horror, and also support an organization that does a lot to help keep people on the right side of the ground.
Love it. So I want to throw this out because this is my favorite game on the show and has been since we started. I cannot tell you how many times the only feedback I've gotten on this show is that movie's not horror. And, I've gone on rants about how rom-coms have elements of horror because if you're not scared of being alone forever, you don't need to find somebody in the next 20 minutes. So to me, everything is horror adjacent. Everything is perception. Everything is, if it's a threat to me, it's horror to me. If it's a threat to someone I love, it's horror to me. So I wanted to throw it out to you too, because this is probably the feedback we'll get on this episode is this isn't horror. So would either of you like to throw out why it is horror or horror adjacent to you?
Me, can I?
Please
Teacher,
do.
teacher. Sorry. No.
I told you don't have to call me that in public.
I know.
All right, go ahead.
Fucking insult. Anyways.
I couldn't help but go there. Yes, go ahead.
Like for me, the fact that the entire, like I realized, I think 3/4 of the way through this movie that I had been tensed up the entire movie because there's a constant threat of violence, even when they're not directly stating it. Every new person they come across, obviously the second you see the fucking cop on it, there's a black dude in a dress in the car. Oh fuck. Yeah, there's like every moment that you get just them when they first pull into the town, even when the one dude picks them up in the truck and Chi-Chi's going over to the truck, like that moment, like I was just like, just wound up waiting for like, okay, is this when the shit's gonna happen? Nope. Okay, is this when the shit's gonna happen? And like every moment of it has that unspoken tension and pressure in it of constant threatened violence, and understanding that those characters are constantly in that sense of terror all the way through it, even when they're joking, even when they're doing the little shopping expedition and go into the one store and find all the old 60s clothes that they're dressing up everybody in there. All these joyous moments in it still have that background of terror. It's definitely a fucking horror movie. It's Friday the 13th, only Jason's just staying most of the movie lurking in the woods, and he's there and he just hasn't come out yet.
Man, that scene where the four of them surround Chi-Chi, like I know that's obviously the high point of the tension and the violence and all that stuff, but that scene, I was sitting there and I was just fucking pissed. Like as soon as the first one did it, I was like, I want to knock this motherfucker out. And then more dudes just kept coming out, and like I'm looking at this, like I'm thinking of every woman I've ever met and every minority I've ever met who's in a place like this. And just I was so, the scene did exactly what it was supposed to do. Let's put it that way. Don, I know you are itching to jump into this. What do you got?
I am. And you know what's funny is I was on mute. And when you asked the question, I was like, I'm going to defer to Anton because I got some shit to say. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to defer to Anton because I got some shit to say. When Anton mentioned that first moment, right? They get pulled over by Sheriff Dullard. Despite, I don't give a shit about it.
I think it's Dullard.
No, it's Dullard. I don't give a shit about it being a typo. The first thing I thought of, and for those of you, if you haven't heard this spiel from me before, bear with me. I'm an historian by training. I'm not one of these guys, that coaches football and decides he's going to teach history, or one of these individuals who buys all the Bill O'Reilly books in Rush Limbaugh books and says that they know anything about history. I actually do research. So I've seen a lot of these, the aftermath of a lot of these police stops, especially during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I'm talking about people of color as well as people in the queer community. What has taken place? You know, the firebombing of a gay club in New Orleans in the 60s. You know, I'm sorry, in the end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, I believe. Then the way in which people are, the sexual violence that comes from it as well. The idea that you deserve to be sexually accosted because of how you appear. You know, that whole idea of like the Sheriff Dullard saying, like, I know what a career girl means. And come here, give me a kiss. And I love how there's this response to, in a traumatic moment, right? Not done humorously, is done in a way of self-defense. It might get played off as a joke, but I didn't take it as a joke in the film. When Vita is getting accosted by this individual, she says, when a lady says no, it means get your hands off my dick. And again, it could be played as a joke, but that is one of those things of you're expecting that this is okay for you to treat me this way. And now I have to reveal who is underneath the makeup, who is underneath the clothing, and make me come out of who I actually am to be somebody I'm not, to protect the person who I really am, if that makes sense. And what I see with each one of these characters, it's not just about protecting their safety or their physical safety. It's also about protecting who they are, because Chi-Chi wants to be Chi-Chi, the drag queen. Chi-Chi doesn't want to be, as Noxima refers to her, a boy in a dress or a little Latin boy in a dress. And this whole idea that you can't, the whole idea that you have individuals that feel as though because of someone's perceived sexuality or their discomfort with their sexuality, their sexual identity, their gender expression, that they can meet them with violence. Because this film comes out 3 years before Matthew Shepard. And for those of you who don't know, Matthew Shepard was a queer teen in Wisconsin, and he was brutally murdered and tortured. I'm sorry, I said Wisconsin, Wyoming. And it's important to understand that just because we have great media that talks about that gives presence of gay characters in film in places like New York, maybe Atlanta, Miami, Los Angeles, there is more safety, but there's still danger in those areas as well, because the ladies refer to having to deal with people like this everywhere they go. It's just that they're more safe in a place like New York. They're more safe in an urban setting. They're more safe around their own tribe, their own group, because the rest of the world shuns them, doesn't want them to be out, doesn't want them to be present because of whatever closed-minded bullshit perspective they have on the world. Anyway, I got more, but it's for stuff later in the film.
Well, and just kind of piggybacking a little bit on that, one of the things that I've noticed over the past few years, because there have been more of those instances of people going into gay clubs or drag nights, things like that, especially because of the political rhetoric that's going on regarding that, shooting up the place or under threats of
Pulse nightclub. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Pulse, that wasn't that long ago. But one of the consistent things that didn't ever used to be a thing, when I was growing up and going to drag shows, I don't remember ever hearing, like, outside of like the normal safety things, like if there's a fire, here where the exits are.
Mm-hmm.
Now every one of them starts off with, if anything happens, look out for each other. These are where the nearest exits are. These are where the secret exits are. These are where some safe spots are. If you need to hunker down, please look out for each other. And there's some version of that speech given at the beginning of every drag show that I go to now. And there's that sense in the audience. I mean, I also see people when they go into them. Queens that I know that perform at places, one of the first things they do is they look around when they are considering performing at a place. They look around to see, how is the place set up? Is it set up around choke points? Is it easy to get out if there's an issue? And that's just like, there's always been the fear of how people are going to react to you, but there were places that were considered safe.
Right.
Going to a gay bar was considered to be a haven where you weren't worried about somebody harassing you, or if somebody came in specifically to harass people, they'd just get bounced out by the clientele, and you'd move on with the night. But now there's that persistent sense of fear, even in these joyous moments. And y'all, if you've never been to a drag show, oh my God, the joy in those things, they're so much of a fun communal experience. They're so great. Whether you're going with like the ones that are just general dancey or the ones that get super raunchy like a burlesque show, they're all so much fun. There's so much joy in it, but there's so much fear in them still hiding behind it. It's unfortunately fucking inescapable.
Well, here's the thing, and I wrote down 3 things about masculinity. So you got fragile masculinity. Sorry, let's start off with it. Toxic, fragile, and healthy. And really the fragile masculinity of a lot of these men, and I'm going to say just these cishet men or these closeted men, this fear of, well, shit, this is really what it comes down to. Either you're afraid that you're attracted to these men, or attracted to people that you're told you're not supposed to be attracted to, right? And you're worried about how society is going to judge you. Or you're worried that people, if you're too lenient and too nice, people are going to suspect you of being gay as well. And I can't have that. I can't have somebody thinking that for being a nice person. And it bleeds into toxic masculinity, which then involves, which then devolves into, attacking people, from verbally, online, to physically, to sexually. Just this idea that you can do it, or you have the authority to do this because of social norms that for some reason you adhere to, as opposed to letting somebody be who they are.
I would add, you're afraid someone will treat you the way you treat women.
Well,
Thank you so much for that, James. I was going to jump in with that too, but you beat me to it. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's the thing, because every time you hear any of these insecure men talk about their aversion to gay people, it's always, well, I don't want them looking at me. I don't want them doing this to me. I don't want that, I don't want them flirting with me or whatever. And I used to run into this all the time, because one of my jobs, which is no secret because I brought it up on here before, was a quote unquote non-traditional job for a guy, which was working at Bath and Body Works. And I say non-traditional because that's what I would get told all the time, is like, well, you don't normally see a guy in one of these places, as if that is some determinant. So, I would have a good number of customers who were queer, and they would come in, we'd talk, we'd catch up and things like that. And everyone, some of the other employees would joke and say like, oh, your boyfriend's here. It's like, why? Like, that's not funny. This is my friend. Like, oh, well, it's like, well, if I were gay, like, that's not something I'm afraid of or worried about. Like, why is this a thing that people, even cishet women, will put on other people to think that they should be ashamed or worried that somebody's going to think that they're queer?
We live in a weird society.
Well, Johnny Galecki, who's, I'm sorry, I told you I was going to be talking a lot. Jonathan Galecki, I think he addressed this. He's from Roseanne and Big Bang Theory. He addressed this because someone in an interview said, what about the rumors about you being gay? And he responded and said, I don't think it's pejorative. I don't think it's an insult. I don't think that's anything to be ashamed of if I am. I said, but why is that asked as if that's a negative? It is the way he was presenting it. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't have anything to add. I was just saying we live in a weird fucking society. That's all.
Yeah.
I do want to, we kind of skipped a question. And Anton, I normally ask people why they picked this film. And I think you've hit a lot of it already, but is there anything you want to add to that since we didn't ask it?
No, I think how well this deals with that constant fear. And also, one of the things that I did, like I have some critiques of this movie. You're going to be hearing some shit from me on it. But one of the things I do think this does really well is with anybody in any minority group, there's so many of the stories are focused on the tragedy of it.
Right.
And we have, there's no, in the, gay, trans, drag, ace, any of those communities, there's no shortage of tragedy stories. This is one that what they choose to focus on, even though there is that constant threat of fear in there are like the horrible things that are brought up, and that the primary focus is on joy. So much of it is in these really fun, light moments, these community moments, bringing people together, how well these three queens support each other. And that is something that's desperately needed, especially with as much pain as going on right now. Showing joy in it as well. I really appreciate how well this movie does that.
Nice. So I want to bring a personal spin to this movie because I never get to do this because I grew up in Nebraska and nothing's filmed in Nebraska except this movie. To Wong Foo was filmed 35 minutes from my house, about 8 miles from where my grandmother lived. And the little town is called Loma. Last I knew, I'm not positive if it's still there, but at least 5 years ago, there was a mural that still said, "Welcome to Snydersville." I think that's really cool. What I want to add to this, for anyone who's listened to the show, I've taken a lot of pot shots at Nebraska, a lot of the small town mentality and just different things I experienced while I was there. But this one hits me weird for the multiple levels involved. When I look at a small town mentality towards drag queens, this movie is what I expect. But I was around when it was filmed. I wasn't in town. I'm not saying I was on set or anything like that, but it was constantly talked about. Everyone I knew was obsessed with this, right? And I was a huge Leguizamo fan, still am. I had this dream I could go to Loma and become his best friend. It didn't work out. Anyway, what I find interesting is that no one that I know of had an issue with the plot of this movie. Like, I look back at the 90s in Nebraska and I think they're going to freak the fuck out at men in dresses. But no, they loved it. They thought it was great. Everybody had a wonderful time. I have never heard a single bad word about filming, about anybody in town, about I think it was 3 or 4 months it took that they were there. Everything is so positive. But then I also look at, you're not dealing with actual drag queens. Right. You are looking at Patrick Swayze, and you're looking at Wesley Snipes, and you're looking at Leguizamo, and they're wearing dresses while in a movie. And I can't help but wonder, because I legitimately don't know, if 3 drag queens had ended up in Loma, Nebraska while their car was being worked on, I legitimately think it would have been better than this movie is. Because the people I know in those areas are very much of the "you're one of the good ones" types. And what I mean by that is anyone they've ever actually met, "Oh, well, you're fantastic. You don't live up to stereotypes. I like you." And so while it bothers me, I think that they would have been as nice, if not nicer, than they are in the film. But I also don't know. And so I've always had this ongoing thing in my head of, were they just nice because it's Hollywood actors? How would they really react? And obviously there's no way to know that. And nothing's going to be 100%. Everybody's going to be different, blah, 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 blah. I just wanted to throw that out, though. Hang on. I got one more thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The most Nebraska thing in this movie. Two things. Is it Blythe Danner? Is that her name?
Yes.
Okay. So she makes a comment where she insults the stutter and then immediately goes, poor guy. And I'm like, you just fucking insulted it yourself. That is so Nebraska. But the biggest Nebraska thing is being upset that spice of any fucking kind got into your food. My mom once wrote me, this is a true fucking story. She wrote me that a sandwich she had pepper and dill and was too spicy, and she didn't know why they had to add that much spice to it. So I just want to commend the writers on getting those two things 100%. All right, Don.
Oh my God. I forgot where I was going to go with this one. Other than the, I'm surprised you didn't bring up the fact that Beatrice, Blythe Danner's character, called the only black person in town colored. He's the nicest colored man I've ever met.
My mom still says colored right now, and it drives me crazy every fucking time.
I thought it was hilarious. But I will say this. Historically speaking, this scenario, it would have actually been a positive one. There are a few books. I mean, I'll probably recommend a few of them on this episode, but Charity and Sylvia, what you would see is in smaller communities, queer residents are not treated any differently. And this is, we're talking about the 18th, 19th, and early 20th century. You would see that. I mean, we had drag queens as well as trans people who had celebrity status through the 50s, and well, I would say it kind of tailed off in the 60s. But I think they would have gotten, like you said, as good, if not a better reception by the people there. But I don't know if it would change their worldview on drag queens or the trans community or the queer community or anything like that.
No, that goes back to the year that you're a good one. Like, yeah. It still doesn't affect the overall view. It's just you. Oh, wow, you are great. You're not what I expect. Yeah. I will add, because what I forgot and left off, I don't think it goes the same today. I think today, everything, media, whatever, has fucked that. And I think today in small town Nebraska, you should get the fuck out of there. And that's not a shot at just small town Nebraska. That's anywhere you don't feel safe. I don't trust anything, so I don't know why anyone else would.
Well, and this is my Fox News, whatever I want to call it. You saw a lot of progress in the 90s with respect to gender identity, with sexual orientation, with queer issues, even with some race issues, right? That was progressing until we started getting in this conversation. And this became a domino effect as far as hitting all parts of the queer community until 2000 hit with the election of Bush. And there was this push of, we want to recognize traditional marriage and keep marriage between a man and a woman. And that trickled into, we want to be able to treat all queer people differently. And as a result, you started seeing more, this rise in violence. You started to have the rise in suicides because that progress that we were starting to make was being lost because there was a conservative pushback and conservative blowback. Thanks to people like Jerry Falwell and that other piece of garbage, Jerry Falwell, where they were blaming homosexuals for everything, including 9/11 and Hurricane Katrina. And if you have people who are donating money to those individuals and watching them, you best believe that they are saying the same things to their queer grandkids or cousins or any members of their community, as far as they're okay. They just don't want them around.
I'll even back it up a little bit further than that. Now, I don't have the broad cultural and historical background that you do, Don, but just from having been alive during the earlier times, even like during the Clinton years was probably during the time period that I was paying attention for the first time to things like that, because I was in my teen years realizing things outside of the basics of my own home life. And that was during the time period that Rush Limbaugh was getting really big. As part of what we have, the resurgence or the emergence of George Jr. To blame for is like those earlier things. And I remember a conversation with my mom when there had been in Ohio, this was somewhere in the early 90s, that there had been a push for and had gotten on ballots to vote on whether or not or to vote on allowing legal marriage between same-sex couples. And also there was the consideration of adding sexual orientation to the list of things that you can't discriminate against. And my mom being one of the people that was saying that, I have no problem with equal rights for everybody, but those people are wanting special rights now.
Right.
You can't give them, and that was where at least my experiences starting to hear that came in on, was the excuse of saying that no, for them, this would be special rights. This would be, they want us to treat them differently. And it was always the us and them was how I always heard that framed in conversations that would occur within my family. That unfortunately I always heard those from a very conservative point of view. But I remember even from like back in that point, when it was starting to come through, and I think where we were starting to see bits of people trying to make that like social difference, especially in a legal sense, that was getting severe pushback even then.
One of the weirdest things to me, so much of my family would say, I'm fine with them having a civil union, but they can't call it a marriage. And I feel that goes to a religious point of view, like, the sacrament of marriage or whatever, but I'm not positive. So I just wanted to know, like, did that happen where both of you were as well?
Yeah. My dad was big on that, and he wasn't religious. That was his big argument. He grew up in a Catholic family, but he said, like, this has nothing to do with religion, but I believe very strongly that the purpose of marriage is to have kids and to create a family. And if you're not doing that, then there's not a reason to get married. Now, of course, at the same time, he very shortly after that got married to his second wife, that they were both like into their 50s. They were not having kids. Like, I was married at the time that he was saying that, and my wife and I have never had any interest in having kids. From the get-go, that was a big part of our conversation. Was you hate them too, right? Yes, I do. Okay, good. We're both good on that point. So apparently our marriage should not have been a marriage, but a civil union, because we had no desire to have kids. And even when I brought that up to him, he still stayed staunch by the idea. I mean, there was a lot of ums and uhs, but even divorced from religion, people still find their excuses to be assholes.
I just find it such a strange thing to say. Like, you're so stuck on a fucking word. It's weird.
It means you don't get the same stuff as me.
Absolutely. That's what it always comes down to. So Anton, I know you have 9 pages of notes, so we're gonna let you have the floor for a while. What do you want to go to, man?
Okay, so first off, are we gonna say anything about RuPaul's dress in the beginning of this?
James was ready.
I literally wrote Dawn and I said, I can't wait to record on Sunday. I know you're gonna have like 2 pages about racial tensions.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't even write anything about racial tensions. So hard to say. Racial tensions other than, I mean, I didn't write anything, but I remember when I first saw this movie and I thought to myself, like, that's a good fucking joke. That's a good fucking joke. And now watching it at home at 45 instead of, what was it, 17 when this movie came out? 16, 17 years old. I said, that's a good fucking joke. That's a good fucking joke. Because it's playing into the neck. Now, I don't like the dress, obviously, but it's playing into the name, the history, racial issue. I mean, obviously with the wordplay, but racial issues and things like that. It like, and RuPaul, I was reading the interview where he addressed the dress. And it was, well, I grew up in Georgia and I saw that flag all the time, and just talking about and then just continue talking about how seeing that flag there and not initially realizing what it meant, and then making the decision to wear that in the film or portray that character in the film to make a joke at the expense of the racism and the idiocy that is in the, not just in the South, but that happens to be in America. But again, I thought it was a good fucking joke. Not one I would make.
The floor. No, it's that was my favorite drag name in the movie. But what more do you have on that, Anton?
That I honestly, I had not initially seen the joke out of it. I was just like, I guess because I'm so used to living in Ohio and seeing people in Ohio with rebel flags and wondering the entire time, like, I mean, you've always lived in the North. You're not like, you're making a real pointed statement if you're in a northern state. Like, you can't even say it's the like I'm holding on to celebrating the history of my state. Like, no, we didn't fly that flag here.
Right.
So you are just saying something very specific. And so I'm guessing that's where my bristling probably came from, was like seeing that. And I initially just got, like, I'm very used to, you are telling me a lot about yourself as a person from the second that you have that. So I immediately had that bit up. Going back to that whole the kind of hidden aspect of horror in this movie, it's always there. And I guess now that I'm thinking about it, god damn it, even from the first scene when you're in a safe drag community and there's this moment of like that symbol appearing right away, that like I already had that. Like, that's, whether it was done as a joke or just to make people like me feel really uncomfortable right from the start, fucking effective. So good on them now, the more that I think about it.
Yeah, I just saw it as really keep it in with drag culture. The quick wits, God, I'm even going to recommend the Golden Girls at the end of this episode. But the quick wit, the wordplay, the ability to read a room and play to the strengths of that room, play off the weaknesses of what you might be presenting, and just have fun. Like, I don't, anyway.
I think that was done really well with it. I'm glad that you brought that up, because it like gives me a different viewpoint on it. And occasionally I need to, get kicked out of my own little bubbles of insecurities.
Well, that's what all these conversations are. Now, mind you, if they made that movie now, I would, not that RuPaul is in the business of taking my advice, but I would be like, Ru, don't. Just wear an American flag and go as racial tensions.
Yeah, that works definitely well enough. And just so that everybody knows, I don't remember the names of the characters in this. It's just Blade, Roadhouse, and Violator. Things that I cannot not mention in this. My dude's lips. Wesley's, I had seen Wesley Snipes in plenty of things before this. I don't know why. I guess just something about like whoever chose the makeup approaches in that got those right shades of lipstick. I don't know, but holy shit, my dude's got some nice lips. Like that, I just could not like, I good on you, Wesley. Blade
Well, Anton,
was rocking some ass and rocking some lips. Like, oh shit.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Wesley Snipes and just the idea that you got Roadhouse, you got Blade, and I was going to say The Pest, but with Leguizamo. But I remember when this movie came out, like I was excited about this movie coming out, and I was the film critic for the school paper. And I was trying to find some excuse because, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a high school student and shit is already weird here as enough as it is trying to fit in. So if I do an article on this movie, I got to make it like sound like I'm being a guy, that type of bullshit. So I said, oh yeah, To Wong Foo, it's got Wesley Snipes in it. It's got so-and-so in it. And I used that because of the fragile masculinity at the time as my rationale for going to see it. And I was like, I love John Leguizamo. This is going to be great. I love his comedy. I'm going to enjoy this movie. But when the movie came out, I remember trying to think about the best way I could put this. When I saw Wesley Snipes in the dress, and I'll go back to my earlier point. When I saw him in the dress, I immediately thought, or with all the makeup and everything, he looked exactly like the girlfriend of one of my female relatives. And every time I saw her after that, I just thought of because she played basketball as well. Every time I saw her, I just thought of To Wong Foo. But the other thing is, this movie, the controversy about this movie when it came out was, oh my gosh, Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze are going to put on dresses and pretend to be women. And it was deemed as kind of this interesting project because you're taking two individuals who are known as being charismatic, action, manly men throughout their films. Even some of the more gentle films like Dirty Dancing. It was more about him being a man and masculine and I mean, a lot of problematic shit in the movie, but it was about a man having control over a woman or anyway, the whole baby in the corner bullshit. So anyway, I remember that coming out because the previous year, the Birdcage had come out. So now it was kind of this moment where we could look at queer representation in film. But the biggest problem with this film, which I would point out is a problem that's being solved today, is the only way that I think filmmakers saw that they could make this movie for a general public was to get historically seen cishet, quote unquote, alpha male type guys to be in this role. Because if we get actual drag queens, it's not going to get taken as seriously. Not as many people are going to see it. And the message is not going to be disseminated to audiences. I think if this movie were remade today, filmmakers would be conscious of having more real drag queen representation than people don't have experience with being drag queens portraying those roles, even with it being acting. But anyway, I'm just glad that this movie was made when it was made, because now if it came out, someone would talk about having an agenda or the gay agenda and wokeness and whatever other bullshit they want to say because they don't understand something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Another bit that would have been helped, and this is one of my big critiques, one of my big issues with this movie. But I think something that would have been helped by having actual drag performers involved in more of the process of it is, the drag queens are in drag all day and even like when they're going to bed. And I don't know any drag queen that does that.
Right.
I mentioned before the amount of work they put into it. Like they get dressed up when they're getting ready to get on stage. When they're like going around town or like, you know, getting their groceries or certainly making a fucking road trip across the country, you're not getting like putting together like that to drive around, especially with what those fucking wigs cost, going in on a drop top, riding down those dusty ass streets. Fucking up no, hell no. So like that aspect of it, really, like the moment that they were driving, like everywhere they were going, they were in those outfits. I was like, no. And especially the first time, like they were going, like they moved into the room they were going to be staying in, and they were going to bed, and they were still all like completely done up. Like, oh, come the fuck on.
I had an additional issue with it, and I wouldn't have if they hadn't kept talking about how dangerous it was. So, like, my issue was, why would you do this if you're so aware of the danger in doing it? Like, I'm not saying they should have to hide. I'm saying if it was me, I would not be in drag at all while going across America, unless I was doing a show, like you said. But also, like, I saw the amount of time it takes them in that first scene to do their makeup and shit. Why would you be doing that? You're trying to get across the fucking country. I don't know. It really bothered me. I get it from plot points and that kind of shit, but it really pulled me out instantly, making me go, why would they do this?
All right,
there's
I'm
no
going to give you
explanation
something
for it.
even deeper. I watched, when this movie came out, I watched the HBO behind the scenes making of To Wong Foo. And what is even more troubling is, and I think I mentioned this on a panel last year, was John Leguizamo, when he was being interviewed, he said that he would have to reshave several times throughout the day while they were shooting, because he's fair-skinned with dark hair.
Mm-hmm.
Wesley and Patrick didn't have to shave as much because their makeup didn't. The hairs didn't show because Patrick Swayze's hair was blonde, or it was lighter hair, lighter colored hair, and Wesley, darker skin, dark hair. So it didn't show up on film. So the production was not concerned, but Chi-Chi would have had to shave several times throughout the day, and then have to redo the makeup each time. And he said that was one of the more time consuming parts of his part of the show, part of the movie, was having to reshave and with an electric shaver, and then have the makeup reapplied, and then go back to shooting, whatever scene they were working on. And he said the same thing for his legs.
He's got great legs.
Hey, he's Johnny Legs.
There you go.
And that's, I think, one of the things that comes up to me with this. That aspect of them always being in drag is a big part of it to me. But really, and this is again a kind of critique, either a critique of it or a different way of looking at the movie. They're not really presented as drag queens. They're presented like everything about the presentation overall is really being presented as being trans. They are people that are acting and presenting themselves completely as women all the way through, even to the point where there's that point near the end where Patrick Swayze is like, "Oh, you noticed my Adam's apple?" There's the assumption that, and this is was one of the ickier scenes to me, that really rubbed me wrong, when, like, near the beginning, when they're needing to get a ride, and Violator, Chi-Chi, is the one that, like, well, I'll go ahead and get somebody to pick us up, and like strikes a pose near the car, and the guy is coming to pick them up, and there's that sense underneath it that they're all that those ladies are trying to trick everybody and not
okay.
And that is because that's such a pervading issue. That's what feeds problems like people still using trans panic as an excuse in murder cases, because it's not my fault. Like I was horny and they had a dick, and you can't have a dick when I'm horny, so I had to kill him. And so,
well, yeah. What if their dick was bigger than yours?
Bigger.
That would really hurt your ego.
And that the big thing that's pushed as far as like bathroom laws and things like that, those trans people are really just using it. Also with the problems with TERFs, that's just guys trying to trick people into thinking that they're women so that they can get into female spaces, or so that they can get things from guys. And that just maybe
they're always telling
them
on themselves when they say that, because that's what they think is going on. And I'm glad that you mentioned the aspect of Chi-Chi, hailing somebody down or hailing somebody down, because I didn't see it that way, and I would have never thought that somebody else would have seen it as, oh, they're always deceiving people. And I could see how people with that mindset, within this, I guess, whatever insecurity that they have, use that as an excuse to then treat them differently by, feeling like, oh, they were trying to take advantage of me or try and trick me or fool me, when that's not the case. But I'm sorry, Anton, I think you were going to... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I spent like a lot of the movie going, do people not know? And like, I didn't necessarily get the feeling they were trying to trick them. I was like, are all these people dumb? Like, what? Like, it just wasn't clicking with me. That's what I'm trying to say. So I didn't even take into account the tricking aspect of life, or blaming being tricked, however you want to say it. It didn't even occur to me. I was just like, how do these people not know? Like, I was very confused.
My head was set on, they know, it's not an issue. I mean, that for me, that's how I looked at it.
There's kind of a telling conversation though. There's the point where I can't remember. I'm pretty certain it was Roadhouse that cornered Leguizamo's character over, because Leguizamo's trying to date the one guy.
Yes,
it was a Bobby.
yes.
I don't remember. It's Bobby something.
Bobby,
and
right.
There was the conversation that was very, never at any point in time directly came out and said, he doesn't know you've got a dick, but it was very clearly, you can't do this because he doesn't know that you have a dick, and that's you're misleading him. And they have the whole what they refer to like that you obey the rules of love, I think is how they word it. Which, I mean, my reading of it the whole time up to there was that Bobby entirely knew what was going on, and that because he kind of had that whole like sheepish, I don't know how to deal with this because I'm in a town that doesn't have any other gay guys, and like I'm realizing I'm kind of attracted to you, and I don't know how. It was very like cute and schoolboyish, but also kind of had that undercurrent. So I was kind of sad at the end that he ended up getting together with the other Bobby in that like weird incestuous thing. But because I was very certain that dude just wanted some dick. And that's fine. Like, great. I was really happy for him. I was really hoping that was the direction it was going to go. And those two were going to ride off into the sunset together at the end. I was kind of sad.
I would have liked that better. Did either of you feel like the other Bobby was like 11? Because that felt really weird to me.
Yeah, they definitely did seem like there was an age gap.
Yeah, she was super young. That was weird.
I was really creeped out by that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to know if that was just me or if that's how you guys read that too. But no, I would like that so much better. I think that would have so much to say about living in those communities and trying to find yourself, and how often you have to leave to find yourself, whether you come back or not. And that's true anywhere. Like, you can live in a major city and have that as well. But like, there's something about small town life and how your entire life is built inside of this small community and how you have to give up everything to leave. And even if you visit every weekend, it's still weird. It's always, well, how's the big city? How, it's the whole, you think you're better than us kind of thing, right?
Right.
And so being able to see Bobby like want, I don't think Chi-Chi has any other name. So, but being able to see Bobby wanting Chi-Chi as Chi-Chi and not just some hot girl who rolled into town. You know what I mean? Just like actually being in love with the boy in the dress. That's so much cooler to me. I would have loved to see that ending. Like, imagine him there at the end when Chi-Chi becomes drag queen of the year, like all like proud, like Taylor Swift to Travis, like that same kind of look. That'd be sweet. I just threw that in to piss off people. All right, go ahead.
You thought you were going to get away without a reference.
Like that would have been, right after walking down the little like runway thing or whatever at the end, like if he came running up and running up, like, because he's a big enough dude, I could see him like running up and scooping up Chi-Chi in his arms, and that would have been so joyous. We need a rewrite of this fucking film.
No, I just say, hey, I say shot for shot remake.
Yeah, just change that little bit. That's all we need. Take the little girl out of the equation. Let him have his discovery of himself. Oh, that would be so nice.
No, I'd say go even further. I want the scene because Vita really struck a chord with me in this film because I did not understand a couple of these scenes as far as the meaning when I first saw them. So that when they first leave and realize they're near her hometown, they're just outside in the car. Her mom sees her and turns around and then goes in and closes the door. So I'm just looking at it as a teenager, like, oh, well, they don't accept her. But that second part where it's, I'm going to go back and I'm going to stand up at that front door and I'm going to say, I'm Vita. And
oh man,
that, like, I was sitting in my office earlier today watching this, and I told my wife, because she was working on the other end of the desk, I said, look, you're about to see the second time, you're about to experience the second time of me crying. And she's like, huh? And she started laughing. She's like, and she was making fun of like kind of how a Trumper would look at him. It was like, look at you crying over a movie about boys in dresses, trying to make fun of like the Trumper thing. And I was like, no, this is beautiful because I didn't think about this at this time. And I've got this different lived experience. And I said, we're going to watch this movie again later today, because that's another one of those great things about this movie is the relevance of some of the messaging. It still hits today because there are people, and you mentioned it, James, in the earlier portion, people who are like 90 years old coming out, and people are like, oh, great, this is outstanding, which it is. But think about all the years that they lost, all the connection that they lost when they could have easily just been accepted, fucking accepted. And because I didn't include this earlier in the episode, and I haven't done a full rant yet. If you are the kind of person who cannot accept their child because their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their expression, anything in the spectrum or any other aspect, go fuck yourself. They were never your children to begin with. They're mine now. Go fuck yourself. And give me their number so I can put them on my tax return this year.
And that's like, think some of the aspects, as much as like, the problems with like, drag queens being in drag all the time and things like that kind of rubbed wrong against me. There are some of the things that they do get really right. And like that aspect of the experience. Also the three of them representing three very important roles in drag culture was so neat to see. Roadhouse is very clearly the drag mom of the group, And like the older one, more experience, helping guide everybody through. Everything is about like, you know, holding everybody together, but also even like there was that harsh mom moment of stripping Chi-Chi's princess points.
That's voodoo.
So wonderful. But like, yeah, so you've got Roadhouse in as the drag mom. You've got Blade in as like the one that also like has been around a bit, but isn't playing the role of the caring one, but is the one that's trying to keep everybody realistic. There's that speech at one, or the like a line at one point in time where they say, I'm looking it up just to be certain on my notes. There are times when you help people, and there are times when helping people will get you killed. Like there's always those bits of like bringing them back to like, you know, you need, yes, there's the hope. Yes, there's trying to move forward. Yes, we want to try to be seen well, but also you need to be smart. Don't be a dumbass and do something that's going to get yourself killed. And then you've got the baby queen in there. You know, you've got Chi-Chi in there as the one that's like new into the ranks, just starting to feel themselves, just starting to get
drag
out there.
princess.
So of course, they think they're hotter shit than they actually are. So when Chi-Chi gets dressed down by the other two over not like, you know, not really being as good at drag as they think they are. But at the same time, being constantly supported and being told, yeah, you're not as good as you think you are. But once we're done with you, once we show you how to do it right, then you're going to be amazing. And just like those levels of the relationship and how they work that through and how they support each other in that was really nice to see. Like clearly there is at least somewhat of people that understand drag culture to that level involved in the creation of this. And it was just, it warmed my heart to see that.
I mean, I feel like we need that in the writing community as well. Like, yeah, you got into a couple anthologies. You're not Stephen King today, but hang out with people, learn the right ways. Don't fucking use AI. You know, like just I feel like that's a really good mentality to have in probably any industry. But I really see parallels to the writing world and how people come in and think that they're ready to take over when they need to learn the ropes still.
Yeah, we need another equivalent to Nick Mamatas, I think, because we've got a lot of like, we've got the Michael Noss, we've got you know, Laurel Hightower is another one that's doing a lot to build people up. We've got some really good people that are definitely like great cheerleaders, but I do feel like we need to have like, we also need that like tough mom in the community that's periodically gonna like smack you down and be willing to be the asshole that everybody hates. And I don't think Nick can fill that role anymore. Like anybody newer, like yeah, he was a big part of an older community. He's still around with them and everything, but he doesn't serve that role anymore. He's not somebody that's important to, or even that the new up and comers know who the hell he is. So yeah, I feel like we need that somehow. We somebody needs to take up that role, and it's not me. I'm not good at that shit. Of being just the like, yep, I'm going to be the dickwad, and I'm going to be the one that's going to tell you everything you're doing wrong, and then somebody else can swoop in and help, like, you know, smooth that over and show you how to like get better about it. But that's me.
I personally love working with both. I am really big on content editing. I would rather help somebody with their first draft, even. Like, I would rather sit down with you and go over your ideas before you hit your first draft. And here's why that doesn't work, or here's a plot hole, or just here's why that's totally fucking redundant. You shouldn't do it. But I also want to be there for this is what will make it stronger. And I'm very much anybody that I've done this for. I'm blunt, but I am not mean. I will tell you what's not working and why. It's never, you're fucking stupid. Why would you do this? It's, don't do this. Other people have done this, or don't do this. It's pulling the punch from this part of your story, or that kind of thing. And I really like both, but it has to be the right project for me. It has to be the right person. It has to be something I want to be involved in. So I think that there's definitely people out there that could be doing this and doing the bad guy thing you were just talking about. I just think it's all about how we present it as well, because especially new writers, but all of us, we all have egos, we all have whatever. Getting too much negative feedback also makes you not want to do it. And so while I jokingly said I would love to be the bad cop that does this, I wanted to really point out that it has to be done correctly. And I feel like that doesn't necessarily always happen in the writing world. And I didn't mean to make this all about writing world instead of what we were talking about. But I really feel like this scene in this movie really hits that. They're trying to tell you what's not working and why, so you can get stronger. It's not just you suck.
And really, anything you do. That's one of the things working in education, especially with the students that I work with. But in general, anything you do, whether it's arts or any aspect of your life, you can always be better. There is always somebody better than you, no matter how great you may have gotten yourself up to it. But also, there's that stage early on where you start knowing a little bit about what you're doing, but you don't know enough to realize how bad you are at doing it. And you need to seek out those people that know it better and that will willingly tell you this is where you're fucking up. And I don't care if you're talking about writing, I don't care if you're talking about drawing, acting, work in fucking construction, does not matter. If you're a plumber, you need somebody that's going to tell you, like, no, like that looks fine and it's working fine right now, but in 16 months this is the problem that you're going to have. I know tattoo artists that are early on that like have their art down but haven't been doing it long enough to realize like how that's going to, like, how that art is going to work on the skin as it gets older and as the person's skin gets older. Like older people do know, like, I've had the people come back 20 years after they got a tattoo from me, and I've seen those changes, and I've been doing this long enough that I know how to keep it so it's still going to be looking as good 20 years from now as it does now. Like I said, any field that you're in, you need that. It is a kind of love. It hurts like a son of a bitch. Even being told by somebody that you know and you care about, being told that you're not as good as you think you are, fucking sucks. But we all need to be told that sometimes. Most of the time, we need to be told that.
Definitely.
Well, one thing I've skipped over in my notes, and that's the jokes. The fucking jokes. And I don't mean just the Rachel Tensions dress. I mean just the quips, the little snide remarks that are the cattiness that's on display, which is great interaction, and it definitely demonstrates, especially between Vita and Noxima, the friendship that they have and how they can play off of each other. But one of the ones that really got me was when they first moved into the room. It's like, oh, it's just going to be one night, and Noxima's character, and Noxima states, "Oh, this looks like the room that Sam. It looks like the last person to be in this room was Sam Cooke," and that wasn't just an issue about time. Sam Cooke, for those of you who don't know, is a very famous soul singer, R&B singer. He was murdered in a hotel room, and it's believed that it was a mob hit. Just the way that they throw in all these cultural and historical nuggets into these quips it's outstanding, and it shows the characters that they were able to develop in creating this identity for the film.
Yeah, those, even in that same scene, the old joke with the light, where like the lady turns the light on really quickly, and I think Wesley Snipes was the one to like point at it and just like make a nix motion. Somebody else ran over and turned off the light really quickly. Like, I just about died in that moment. It was just such a quick little thing, but just like it was such a great character moment, and like just felt so honest, and like yeah, I just really loved that. Yeah, they have so many great little quick snap off jokes. The moment where Chi Chi and Roadhouse are insulting each other back and forth is
Yes.
great. Like they both cut so deep. It's oh that was great.
They hit that reference about Jane Mansfield in the car as well.
Yes.
And, and I didn't know who Jane Mansfield was, but I looked at my wife and I was like, so I take it she died in a car accident.
Yep.
I pulled it up and I was like, well, there you go.
Her kappa was detated.
I just love the way that she said, Noxima says, not a good auto reference. I thought that was such a great way to state it. All right, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, but one of the things that we kind of skipped over was also with Sheriff Dollard and how not just the police stop, but how he gets ridiculed by I guess the state troopers or whoever it was who found him. How he gets ridiculed is like, oh yeah, so you got beaten up by a girl. Like, no, they were men. Oh, so you got beaten up by men in dress, just making fun of him as far as like, you're not a man because you got beaten up by somebody who we deemed as being steps away from masculinity. So this is the central point, and everything that you do that's seen as emasculating means that your masculinity is non-existent, or is you lose your points that way. But you see how he writes up that list. He's like places for homos, and then he's in the bar, and I've got the quotes here. It's like men acting like women, men wanting to be with one another, men touching each other, their stubbly chins rubbing up against one another, touching each other, manly hands touching swirls of chest hair, an occasional whiff of a rugged aftershave, their low baritone voices, sighing, grunting. They hold one another in manly, masculine arms, hold one another tight. And what's the great joke there is not just the fragile masculinity, but his masculinity has been so broken with this reality that he's sitting in what would be seen as a masculine space as far as like being a dive bar. It's just a bunch of other men in that room. And what a lot of people miss is he's talking about homosexuality as a negative, as far as like trying to pin it that way, right? Queerness as a negative. But then he's doing the exact same thing while complaining about it because he's in a bar full of men, just other masculine men around each other, smelling each other's breath and, other, expulsions from their bodies. So it makes them real, at least for this individual, he just further descends to the point where he wants to take over the town because he's so offended that a gay person, a queer person got the better of him. He could have just fucking let it go. But I mean, that's fragile masculinity.
And there that bar moment too. Like I have my own personal brain canon of a deleted scene that exists in this movie. It has occurred because it just stops from like the one husband sits down next to him, and you're clear that that's how he's finding out that are in that town. But then it just jumps from like the next time you see the two of them is when they're pulling into the town. So I'm just in my head.
You're shipping them.
Chat for a little bit. They connect really tightly. The one guy doesn't have a home to go. Clearly, that cop in hotels. So he goes ahead and helps the dude out, gives him a room, and only room. So it's fine. Like guys sometimes sleep in a bed together. It's okay. And over the course of the night, maybe it's a little cold in that room because they got the air conditioning up too high, and they start cuddling in a little bit closer to get warm. And one thing leads to another.
And they hold one another in manly, masculine arms.
Sex scene in my head involving those two, and that is what has occurred as far as I'm concerned.
That is crazy how you just described when we roomed together in Kentucky.
That was the inspiration in my brain, James. The difference was I came with that intent for that to occur.
Oh my God.
And I did mean every bit of it when I said I came.
There you go. I want to point out with Sheriff Dullard, my wife was like, "Is that Jonah Hill's dad?"
God damn it.
And now it's all I see when I see Chris Penn. Thanks a lot. Anyway.
Jesus. Oh my God. But yeah.
I was honestly sad in that bar scene because there was so much of me that's like, I think I've been in that bar. If I haven't, I've been in like 900 exactly like them. And it just gave me like this feeling of my childhood back. And then I was just like, why did my parents take me to so many small town bars? And also this explains a lot about me.
Oh my God. Well, speaking of small towns and stuff, that other portion of Sheriff Dullard showing up and complaining, right, when the town is not on his side, which is really cool. I mean, not really cool, really interesting and really telling. Because then he starts going into this thing about, they're corrupting our way of life and changing the way things have always been. And to think again, if this film were right now, you would think it was a parody of what was currently taking place because it's so on the nose. It's the same things that people are talking about when they're proposing, bans on drag brunch or story time with a drag queen, or in the case of Oklahoma, treating kids to the point where other people are empowered to beat them to death. And that's you guys go. I
don't have anything.
I have a real problem with folks like that.
And
tradition.
Even like adding on to that, like how like the changes in those. One of the things I really liked about that moment is it underlined, and it's something that I've seen quite a few people mention. And if you're somebody that was at any point in time a fan of like older country music or new like older rednecks back in 90s, 80s, definitely 70s, 60s on back, going back to, I mean, rednecks, that term started from union strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea that now, like, that old school rednecks were constantly like, you'd never see a redneck supporting the police. There was a whole run of TV shows about two good old boys that were fucking around with the cops all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that is something that was always ingrained in that culture, the anti-establishment approach. Going back to the whiskey rebellions that were vital to, unfortunately, how they were put down were vital to the economic approach this country took. But rednecks have always been traditionally like against established authority. But
Mm-hmm.
now you have like the Toby Keith rednecks that will throw up a like thin blue line flag
with a Punisher logo.
Outlaw country, and I support the police. Those two fucking things do not coincide. And that this movie has a whole like, nah, real rednecks say fuck the law, be gay, do crime. Like I would really love that to be just like, like the going new push with outlaw country is be gay, do crime, being the underlying focus of it.
Is there an anthology with that name yet? Because there should be.
Oh God, why is it? Because we've got like queer horror and like queer romance and all that. Why don't we have queer fucking crime books? Somebody call Gabino Iglesias on this shit, because I feel like he's the person that would need to edit that, just because he's got his fingers so deep in the crime thing, and I feel like he'd be entirely down with it.
It's just a great title. Let's at least get you some shirts with that we can sell at cons, and I'd wear one. Anyway, One of the things I wanted to mention while we've been talking, often I look at notes about the movie or things like that and learn stuff. And I learned that everything I said about treating these people in this crew well was bullshit. Apparently, I was just not a part of this and didn't get to hear these things. But I read that it was actually very rough on a lot of the cast and crew because of how locals treated them, and that it was a very long 4-month shoot for them. And it led to a lot of infighting on the set and stuff like that because of what they dealt with every day. And so I just wanted to recant what I said at the beginning and tell you that from my point of view, that's what I was told. But if that's not a Nebraska fucking thing to do, I don't know what is. Tell everybody the good version and go out and be a fucking asshole, right? It just doesn't have the same ring as be gay, do crime. Be an asshole and lie about it just doesn't sound the same, you know?
But I mean, that's Midwest nice right there.
Absolutely.
That's what we do where I live.
Oh man, Midwest nice. That's the thing. Why would you actually be nice when you could appear to be nice instead? But I'm legitimately hurt by this because I had this nice vision in my head of the way everybody always told me things, you know? And now I'm like, well, just another fucking lie. So well, this feels like when I found out that George Washington's teeth weren't made of wood. No.
Yes.
What else you got in your notes, man? I could just rant about Nebraska all day, but I'll choose not to.
I'm going to back up to something positive because I'm going to try to bring in fun things whenever I can.
Please do.
Beth Grant in this fucking movie, because goddamn, I'm so used to her, everything that she appears in. You know, she's always like the dowdy, like very, very strict, like asshole lady in the things. And in this, you get to see her playing such a fucking fun role. And god damn it, when they do the dress up on everybody in that scene and she comes out of there, her fucking outfit, to use the parlance of the youths of today, my bitch is serving cunt on that. Oh my fucking god. I saw that and I just about shat myself.
I was just gonna say she was definitely making some of the guys in town ready to risk it all. But this must have been, after she was lovers with Dwight Schrute.
Oh my.
Yes, it all comes back to The Office and it all comes back to wrestling. But no, here was one other complaint, but I get why it was done. I have a real problem with tropes, but I understand why they're done in some ways. You have a good history of queer films, and I mean queer coded films. I mean, going back to movies like Some Like It Hot, you could argue heavily, not just because of the costumes, but just the way the story is carried. You gotta think about the best way I can. When this movie came out, there wasn't that much of a breadth of films that were specifically dealing with queer issues. Philadelphia had come out a few years ago, but it was more about AIDS than it was about queerness, even though, I mean, it was good representation of it. You had a film, Paris is Burning, which is talking about the ballroom scene, the club scene, things like that. And then previous to that, a lot of the queer representation that I can recall was typically making fun of queer people. You have Lamar in Revenge of the Nerds. You have Mr. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his name on Three's Company, but not Mr. Roper, the other character played by Don Knotts. He was heavily queer coded. But by the time that you get to the 90s, it almost seems that with this movie and with The Birdcage, there's kind of this magical queer, kind of like the magical Negro trope where everything got better because of them. Or even when it came to renovating, fixing up their room, it was done so quickly. And so, and everyone was watching them work their magic. Same complaint was made when Queer Eye for the Straight Guy came out. And I wonder how you would be able to make a more representative film to deal with the issues of these ladies. Not necessarily if they had to be drag queens. I would say have them, they're all trans, or maybe a mix of trans and drag, so that you can see an individual as far as a drag queen that's only putting on for performance. And then you have someone who that is their identity. That is who they are. This is not a costume. I don't know. I just want to see something that's going to be better and it doesn't treat it to where it's either a joke or it doesn't allow for the identity to be seen as like, oh, all your problems are solved because the drag queens showed up.
Sounds pretty woke. I don't know.
Oh, if it helps any, when we get down to the recommendations, I have some of those movies for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
buddy, I got your back. Those are coming out. And what I really love is there's been a great underground. For those of you that don't know, there's been a great since the 90s at least. I mean, that's far back as I was aware and paying attention to these things, of some amazing, wonderful, fun underground horror movies made by and for the queer community. And like I love that that's been like a part of this culture, and that I get to see like both cultures that I'm really into and enjoy hanging out with overlapping in that sort of way. So yeah, there are those out there. Unfortunately, very few that are at this level of budget. I definitely think that it'd be great to see more large budget, like big, like full release movies like this was come out, so that more of those stories could be told, and having them be told, like you mentioned before, by people in the community, instead of like, I think a good amount of the problems that this runs into is it's so much being told by people outside the community, telling the story of people within the community. But we've got more of those, like more people in the alphabet mafia, as it were, that are in positions, in writer positions, in director positions, actors that are available, things like that, that could fill out a movie that would very well represent. Because we don't, I don't believe, like, John Waters doesn't have any more movies in him, I'm pretty certain. And that was the closest that we got, was somebody that was like, not even the closest. Like he came from like, the Baltimore queer community. There was a fucking weird ass community just in itself. Like, Baltimore is a hell of a strange city. And that definitely shows in everything John Waters has done. But I'd love to see more voices like that coming out. So please, any of you that are listening to this, write some shit, make some shit, do this. I want to experience it. And somebody else bankroll those motherfuckers so that I can see this stuff. I will give you money for it.
Absolutely. I love that every time Leguizamo's asked about this movie, he says if it's ever remade, he wants a transgender person to play Chi-Chi. I think it's really cool that he goes out of his way to just drive that in every time. And I don't know, like, I've been a fan of him forever, obviously, but it still blows my mind that he's talking about this movie from 30 plus years ago. Well, 30 next year, I guess, whatever.
29, yeah.
Yeah, so like that he's still so honed in on this film, and he wants it to be remade and to have the proper representation. And I love that. I made a joke about golf at the beginning of this. I didn't know until today that Chi-Chi Rodriguez, the golfer, had sued the movie for using his name and causing such damage to his reputation. And I still don't understand why they used the name Chi-Chi Rodriguez, but there's part of me that hopes. I'm going to tell you why. Hang on, there's part of me that hopes that they had no fucking clue who this asshole was, and it was just a name. All right, what do you got?
All right. I can't confirm this, but I'm going to say that this is my rationale for it. Chi-Chi is the nickname for tits. So if you say, you cover your chi-chis, you're covering your breasts. So I've always ascribed to it was it was to respond to, I guess, the sexualization as far as like that character. That, at least for me, that's what I took.
I just think it's
And
weird that Chi-Chi Rodriguez took the name from another Chi-Chi that he thought was a great hero. So it's like somebody took your name that you took from somebody. What are you so fucking pissed off about?
And a
Chi-Chi
name
Rodriguez.
like
I'm sorry, Chi-Chi Rodriguez. Chi-Chi, the golfer, was such a, I guess, anyway.
What were you saying, Anton?
Oh, I was just saying that like names like Chi-Chi, like they're in the drag community, like those, like having playful names that have some sort of like sexual undercurrent to them, twisting around things, has regularly been a part of it. I mean, it all depends on the type of drag that you do. Obviously, you wouldn't be doing, drag story hour with like, Tits McGee as your name, but at the same time,
I would attend that.
Like the ones that like people that do more kind of like intense versions of it. My favorite drag king name, and by God, we need more fucking drag king representation, by the way, because those motherfuckers can work it. But my favorite drag king name, if you have not seen the last season of Dragula, one of the people involved in that is Throb Zombie.
Oh my God.
Period. That's it. The game's done. I don't know.
Oh my God. That is outstanding.
Come up with a better fucking name after that. That is so fucking good.
Wow. I love it. Don, what would your drag name be?
Oh my God. What's funny is I've considered what?
I just was not sure which way you would react on this, if you would take me seriously or if you would. Anyway, go ahead.
Pandemonium.
I love it.
It's
my
just
personal
Pandemonium.
No, I like that a lot. Plus, you have the whole panda thing going on all the time, so it fits in. My favorite that I've ever heard was one of my friends in college who went by Cheyenne Prude, and I just always really liked that because Cheyenne was definitely neither shy nor prude, so I thought it was a wonderful name.
I really enjoy, and I know like I'm not the one that came up with this, just somebody had floated it out there, and I haven't seen anybody take it. So somebody please do this. Rhonda Santos.
Yes.
I so desperately want to see that. And it needs to be somebody a lot better at this shit than I could be. So please, somebody with lots of skill that you've been working on, take that as your drag name. And I have all of the tip money for you. I'm ready to just throw that shit at you.
One thing that stood out to me, which it's meant to stand out, so it's not anything that was insightful, is how this individual does the whole spiel that everyone in politics is kind of taken up, which is, the founding fathers, ... the founding fathers, ...
Man.
And his big problem is men wearing dresses, what our founding fathers think. And this one guy walking by is like, I don't know, but they sure had fabulous wigs. And the joke is not just the fact that he said that, it's pointing out that they wore wigs, but the fact that he uses the term fabulous. I mean, the writing the jokes just heavily underrated for this. But yeah, it's just weird how people are concerned what a bunch of racist, rapist pieces of shit said or thought 300 years ago because they had a good idea that they actually took from other people. So, which is kind of par for the course. Anyway, fuck George Washington.
But he did have a fabulous wig, and their outfits were very flouncy. I'm a big fan of flow in an outfit, and they did have a lot of that going on. Also, it seemed like a good amount of like velvet or felt things, like probably not felt, but like velvet and things that just seem very soft materials. And
Anton, you're gonna love this. I completely forgot about this piece of trivia. All right, George Washington, because if we're gonna keep with gay stereotypes, right? George Washington designed the military uniforms for the Continental Army, was known to be a great dancer. And there was something about always wanting to, he spent a lot of time with his men away from his wife because she complained about that. So it's possible he might have been. That would be a great thing about him. Everything else is horrible about him. But we actually have had one, if not more, gay presidents. So you get this other piece of historical knowledge, and that is the 15th president of the United States, James Buchanan, was possibly, well, actually not possibly. He and his live-in partner, Adolphus King. Oh my gosh, now I forgot his name. But anyway, they were living partners for 13 years. They were not roommates. It was well known within Washington. What Rufus King, while Rufus King was serving as vice president, that he and Buchanan were married. And this was just an issue of people understood that they were together. So they referred to them as the dandies.
Wow.
So for anybody who says, hey, this is changing tradition, this is changing things, this is changing the way things are. Ancient Greece, drag was represented there. Roman theater, drag is represented there.
Everything Shakespeare did.
Shakespeare. It's so when people say, oh, they're trying to change this, they're change this, they're change this. No one is trying to change anything. What people are trying to do is be recognized as human beings with worth and be valued and visible, and most importantly, alive. Sorry, that's the last rant from me.
It's all good. Anton, do you have anything to add to all of this before we go to recommendations?
I don't know. I could ramble forever, but yeah, probably best that we stop at this point and go on to that word that you used that the person with an English degree cannot seem to say.
So fine, we'll go.
James,
there.
you're not going to mention Dr. King, his cameo in this movie?
I don't know what you're in reference to, Don. You should mention it because
the only colored person in town, as it was pointed out, the nicest colored man you'd ever meet. I just looked at him, I was like, he strangely looks like Dr. King. So there were 2 points was uncomfortable because of the way that Citizens Council and Klan propaganda was in the 60s. Their fear was that Dr. King was doing all of this stuff in order to have access to white women. And for me, watching this and having seen that propaganda and seen those publications, when he's in the car with Gwyneth Paltrow's mom, and they hit the bump and she slides over and he smiles. I'm like, oh, God damn it. This is going to be like some neo-Nazi propaganda now, because this is Dr. King's the dream that he really wanted. That, and when he says, I'm a drag queen, and starts rubbing his nipples in front of everybody.
That was so odd.
But you know what? It is and it isn't, because I feel I would do the same shit in that situation. Because you've got a group of people who have accepted somebody into their community, and somebody else on the outside of that community is not welcome. And I'm going to make you feel uncomfortable because this is the thing that you find discomfort in, but I don't anymore. I mean, not saying that any of them did, but if they did, they no longer feel that way. And if they were afraid to present themselves as being sympathetic to this marginalized group, they didn't see other people that were sympathetic to where they would be able to band together over this issue.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
My final thing I want to throw in, the most unbelievable thing in this movie to me was when the 4 younger guys were suddenly dressed in strawberry stuff at the end. And I was like, no, that would not fucking happen at all, ever in that town. And I want to add that I have been replaying all the old GTA games, and all I could think was worst gang ever. But yes, I don't know what was going on with that. That was so, I don't know. It just felt so out of place in this movie. So I just wanted to end there.
You mean every town in the Midwest doesn't have like a group of 4 guys that are like the town goons?
Get your pink strawberry shirt. We're going to go out and cause some violence. Like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that brings us to
there is West Side Story.
Movie recommendations.
Hold on a second here, James, because remember what we said before: be gay, do crimes. Best
true.
gang ever.
They would be if I thought they were gay, but I don't. So I'm not convinced. I think they're just out bruising strawberries. But all right, movie Rex. Anton, you are the guest. You get to go first. If people liked this movie, what else do you suggest they watch?
Okay, so let's see if I can rival Don with my list. But first off, one of the things I'm going to recommend to people that you don't have to pay anything for because it's not regularly available isn't a movie, but the TV show that was my first experience dealing with John Leguizamo, House of Buggin'.
Hell yeah.
One of the big things that I really I didn't realize at the time that it came out, but I've revisited, and you can find some of those old episodes on YouTube. They're all crappy versions, like somebody had clearly had an old VHS tape that they made of it and were just uploading that onto there. But whatever, you still get to see the things. They did some bits on voguing, which if you aren't older and weren't around for that time period, which certainly I was not aware of such things at that age, that was where Madonna got her Vogue thing from, was in as part of the drag community, was a style of dance added to drag that was very specific to the Latinx community in New York. And they did a whole series of skits related to that. There was John Leguizamo. Why can't I think? Luis Guzman was one of them, and I don't remember who the other person was, but it was the 3 of them doing these, playing these drag queen characters. One point they get pulled in front of the U.S. Senate to talk about what they're doing, but it was done so respectfully and joyously, as a celebration of that culture, which House of Buggin' had followed on the heels of In Living Color and had been kind of promoted as the Latinx version of In Living Color. But if you compare that representation to those fucking men-on skits in Living Color that were just aren't gay guys stupid, so many problems with the Wayans brothers, so many issues with them. But anyways, that difference of not making fun of this aspect of queer culture, but celebrating it and celebrating how important of a part of New York culture that is so gorgeous, and they're fucking hilarious. Oh my God, are they funny? So look that shit up on YouTube. It's great. House of Buggin', check them out. Great things. In addition to that, if you want some stuff that is kind of adjacent to this but more focused on the horror, there's a fairly relatively new-ish movie, Death Drop Gorgeous, that is all centered around drag queens. It is a straight up very, very standard horror movie, so nothing to complain about there for y'all. They're this is not horror enough. Fine. There's blood, there's guts, all of those fun things. And it is every bit as campy, over the top, and fun as hell as drag is in general. It's so great. I highly recommend it. Very low budget, but super fun fucking movie. There's also one I haven't watched yet, but I want to watch. So I'm just going to mention it now so I remember to do this. That is, I saw when I was looking up these things. Killer Unicorn is the name of a movie that's out that was cross-referenced with this. So that's just a recommendation to me to remember to watch that one. And then I had mentioned some of those older queer horror movies. One of the first ones I had seen that I remember back from early 2000s is Hellbent. That is straight it's a straightforward slasher, but it's all centered within the queer community, and it doesn't stop the story for messages or anything, but does a really good job of like representing the community within the course of just telling its general story. But also, of course, you've got like some of our more traditional horror things like The Haunting. Even go back and watch that 1963 version. Go back and read the book. And whenever people try to say things about the newer, like the TV show version of The Haunting, and why they have to add in a gay character, that character was very, very clearly very, very clearly a lesbian in the book and also in the 1963 movie. So that's super fun. The Hunger, I mean, come on. There is not a queerer film out there. And it is like, it's again got that like super heightened camp sense that goes with drag. Highly recommend that. The sleepaway camp movies, yes, they have lots and lots of problems to them, but also like we can't skip by those. May, if you've never seen May,
Hell yeah.
oh my! You mentioned connections to Frankenstein. May is just a Frankenstein movie. Angela Bettis is astounding in that. I forgot until going back and viewing that again. His Anna Faris is in it. And because mostly what I noticed her from was the scary movies and things like that. So I'm used to her like camping it up and acting like, being just a really shitty actress from those. She's real fucking good in that movie. Seed of Chucky. Anybody talks about Seed of Chucky to me, I will break their kneecaps. I love every bit of that movie. It is so great. It is probably my favorite of the Chucky movies. Certainly, if it's not my absolute favorite, it's damn high up in there. I love that so much. Jennifer's Body, of course, is another good one. There's so much great queer horror out there. Like, go check that stuff out. It's super fun.
Nice. I don't think anyone's ever come that close to competing with Don. I like it. I am going to do the opposite and go with my double feature. And I'm so glad you brought up the Wayans, because White Chicks, I'm totally fucking kidding. Don actually mentioned my double feature early on. For anyone who doesn't know, I have been watching all of Robin Williams' films. And I happened to watch The Birdcage a couple weeks ago, and I think that neither one necessarily speaks to the world today, but or at least not the way I would like them to. But I think they were both trying really hard at the time, and I think that they have a lot in common while doing it in different ways, and just really focusing on self-acceptance. Expressing yourself and having those you love accept you, or those that you're around accept you. And I think that those themes run really deep in both of these films. So I would highly recommend watching The Birdcage if you liked this film. All right, Don, 6,789 movies. Go for it.
It might be up there. I'm glad you mentioned The Birdcage and you talked about it, because that would be, if I were to do a double feature, it would be those two movies. And as far as I'm concerned, this is canon for me. I feel as though these two movies exist in the same universe. It's just that when Armand is away, he becomes a different character, a different version of himself. So that's how, he's in New York now. So I'm dealing with my friends here as opposed to Miami. So that's how I feel. Let's see. Boy Erased. I mean, some of these are going to be serious dramatic films. They're going to be a lot heavier. But I think it's important to talk about the queer films that are out there. Not that all these films are queer or have to be queer, because we're talking about a queer topic. But I think they can shed light on intersection between communities and expose people to, I don't know, something that would make them understand that people have value, even if they don't provide you with something that you see as valuable, if that makes sense, or don't devalue someone because you don't like their art, or definitely don't vote for individuals that are going to support bans on drag when you laugh at Medea every time you have a chance. Anyway, so Boy Erased, Boys Don't Cry, Death Becomes Her, In and Out, Paris is Burning, half of the episodes of the original Quantum Leap, Birdcage, pretty much if you want to get a introduction to drag culture, I would say go with Paris is Burning and Drag Race. I guess pick a season. Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, Priscilla Queen of the Desert, Connie and Carla, Some Like It Hot. This is going to sound like a funny one, but it's not, because it's about finding a community in your family. Lilo and Stitch. The Little Mermaid, because of Noxima's reference to how she, I'm sorry, Vita did it, put on her performance at the pond. I'm sorry, the fountain. Addams Family, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, the Bosom Buddies television show with Peter Scolari and Tom Hanks, Victor Victoria, Cinderella, Spartacus, Moonlight, Rocky Horror Picture Show, But I'm a Cheerleader, Brother Outsider, Married with Children, because there is a huge, there were a lot of drag queens that were dressing up like Peggy at one point. Absolutely Fabulous, Spice World, Another Country by James Baldwin as far as reading, any John Leguizamo one-man show, Steel Magnolias, Witches of Eastwick, and Fried Green Tomatoes. So yes, I've broken the record.
You might have. All right. Well, excellent. Anton, that brings it back to you. Where can people get your writing, follow you on social, follow you in real life? What kind of drinks should they buy you at the bar? Whatever you want to talk about.
So social medias, I know I'm on like Facebook and Instagram. I'm trying to do stuff with TikTok, but I'm not good at that. So I don't know. Blue Sky, although I very rarely remember to check that, but I'm on there. Also, I'm a Luddite that hasn't bothered like getting an actual like direct URL for my blogspot site. That's antoncancre.blogspot.com, because again, like it would take effort, and why am I going to do effort towards things? My books, you can all the books I currently have out that are just mine are available through Dragon's Roost Press. They are also available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can contact me and purchase copies directly from me. Any way that you can come across to get money to me, I will accept. In addition to the ones that are currently out, there are some books that are going to be coming out soon. There's one that Roxy Voorhees is putting out. This is also going to be through Dragon's Roost Press. The Pleasure and Pain. She wanted to go back to those old like Love in Vain, kind of like, if any of you were fans of like the 90s erotic horror stuff. So yeah, it's super hot and also super gross. Sexy stuff involving monsters. I personally have a story involving somebody getting it on with a mummy, because so dry. So anyways, that's going to be coming out. Already mentioned We're Here, but I'm going to mention it again because any sales of We're Here do go to the Trevor Project. I got to take part in a Exquisite Corpse style novella that Robert Poff put together that has just way too many people for me to bother listing. The name of that is Where Bacon. It is currently available for pre-order. If you're going to be at AuthorCon 3, we are going to be doing like the official like release blowout for it there. That book is super fucking weird. It's about mutated pig monster zombie things that like 13 of us got together and wrote various bits of. It's a fucking strange ass experience, but goddamn was that fun to write. And I'm so glad that I got to be in on that with Robert. I also highly recommend get to know that dude. The work that he's put out already, I can tell like he's gonna be, unless he for some reason decides to stop doing this, he is gonna be a fucking force. And it was so cool to be invited by him to work on something. It was super cool to be invited by Roxy to work on Pleasure and Pain with her. It was fucking astounding to be invited by Angelique Giordano to be a part of We're Here. So pick up those books because it also gets money to some amazing people that are doing great work out there. Great. Again, I will keep pushing queer horror to the end of my days. They are all queer artists that are doing some great stories. Buy that shit, and also buy some more Chuck Tingle, because people don't give Chuck Tingle the fucking credit he deserves as being a really good writer. Nobody does character like he does. Fucking Chuck Tingle, man.
Excellent. All right. Well, I suppose that wraps it up for another week then. As always, I am James Sabata.
And I'm Don Guillory. And just thinking about men acting like women, men wanting to be with one another, men touching each other, stubbly chins rubbing up against one another, touching each other, manly hands touching swirls of chest hair, an occasional whiff of a rugged aftershave. Their low baritone voices sighing and grunting. They hold one another in manly masculine arms. Hold one another tight.
And we will see you next week here at the Necronoma.com.
Hold on.